I don't know. I have a feeling that you are guilty of one or more of these mistakes that is absolutely ruining your car. Because guess what? I am. And a car is a big investment. So for that reason alone, I'm gonna cover 5 ways you're ruining your car, plus an honorable mention, so you can keep your ideal car running as long as possible and don't end up with a hefty repair bill. It's great to see you guys again. Let's go. I think every enthusiast or just regular car person has been guilty of this at least once or thrice. And that is revving the motor when it is ice cold. Now, personally, I see this quite often when people are leaving car meets. And of course, you want to show off just a little bit. And so you give that throttle just a little jab, and then it gives it a little bit of a rev, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and all of a sudden you are redlining that sucker, and it is cold. And the main reason you just don't want to do this is because cold revving creates crazy different temperatures within the engine block and can cause some extreme damage. See, when the engine is cold, the oil is thick, so it doesn't move as quickly. And there's a ton of stress in your engine. And so the right thing to do is just let the engine warm up to normal operating temperature. Now, if you are that guy at that car show and you need to make way too much noise, just know that you will at some point probably pay the consequences. But for the rest of you more sensible people out there, watch the temp gauge, watch the oil gauge, and once it's fully warm, you can go as hard as you want. Now, 100%, no doubt, you and I are both guilty of this next one, and that is not putting on the emergency brake when you park. See, even if you're parked on a level surface, you still should use the parking brake, because even though it just takes a couple of seconds to engage, it can save you a boatload of problems. And here's why, because when you put your car in park, there's this little metal thing that sticks out into a hole. And that little thing is called a parking pawl, and that is essentially holding all of the weight. Now, like I said before, use your parking brake even when you're on a level surface, because if you were to be bumped by another car and they break that little thing that's the size of your finger, that can be a costly repair bill. Now, luckily, because parking brakes latch onto the rear brakes, they will have to give before this little parking pawl gives. So they're at least a line of defense that you should use, because it costs nothing to use it. Now, before we get any further in this video, it's time for the ideal question of the day, which is, what is the craziest thing you've ever seen someone do while driving their car? Let us know down in the comments, and I will pick my favorite comment and send them one of these ideal tees, which if you're not feeling that lucky, you can go snag one yourself and support the channel and join the ideal fam. Okay, I want to see a raise of hands. Who's guilty or knows someone or some people that run on quarter tank of gas or less? Yeah, I am guilty of that, and you need to stop, because running your life $10 of gas in the tank at a time is just not the way to save money. Yeah, in the short term, you may feel like you're saving a little bit of money, but your fuel pump has just entered the chat. And well, the way it keeps cool is it's submerged in gas in your gas tank. Yet, when you're less than a quarter tank or at 1/8 a tank or on E, it's not submerged. And the way it stays cool is it likes to hang out in the gas. So if you're always running on quarter tank or less, well, you're gonna speed up the need for a fuel pump on your car tremendously. And so here's a little ideal trick that I started using. When you hit quarter tank, fill up, because then you're always at least a quarter tank and your fuel pump will thank you later. Yes, I think a lot of us like driving manual transmission cars, but there's one mistake that almost every single person does, and that is leaving your hand on the shifter instead of keeping both hands at 10 and 2. Or is it 9 and 3? Anyways, yeah, leaving your hand on the shift knob puts unnecessary strain on bushings and synchronizers. And guess what that means? Premature wear. And nobody's got time for that. Plus, if you're spirited driving, well then keeping it at 10 and 2 or 9 and 3 is the best way to get the most out of your driving experience. And if you know, you know. A manual transmission can add and heighten that driving experience. And so just make sure you're doing it right. Oh, and now it's time for that honorable mention, baby. If you've ever driven a manual transmission car, you either knowingly or unknowingly did this. It's called a clutch kick. And essentially it's where you stab the clutch, rev the engine to the moon, let out the clutch, and that's the way that you can start a drift. Although that can be loads of fun, it's a great way to abuse your clutch. But unfortunately, that's not the only way you can really hamper how long your clutch lasts you. Because one of the necessary evils of life is traffic. And in stop and go traffic, you're using the clutch, the gas, the clutch, the gas, and that can wear out your clutch. So try not to just feather the clutch, rather engage or completely disengage and put the shifter in neutral, and your clutch will last a lot longer. The other thing that people rarely, if ever, know that they're doing, so you have to be conscious of it, is at a slight incline, they start feathering the clutch to hold the car rather than pushing in the clutch and using the brake. Now, it sometimes can be a tricky maneuver when you finally have to get going on that hill, but trust me, keep the clutch in, use your brake, even use the e-brake if you need to hold you in there. And then once the light turns green, let off the clutch and give it some gas. If you're constantly holding your car on a hill, you can wave that clutch life goodbye. So if you like to go skiing, snowboarding, or you just have driven over a mountain pass before, going up is one thing, but going down is a completely different animal. Naturally, your car is going to be picking up speed because you're going downhill, which means you're going to be using your brakes a lot more. And brakes are not meant to be used constantly, because not only will they wear quicker, but they can actually warp. And that's not even the worst of your worries, because they can also have what we call brake fade, where they start to work less and less, and then sometimes they completely fail. So when you're going down a hill, don't overuse your brakes, and instead use the engine to help you brake by doing compression braking. And that's actually really easy. If you're an automatic and you're in drive, take off overdrive or even come down another gear and let the engine slow you down. If you're in a manual transmission, downshift once or twice and let the engine slow your vehicle instead of your brakes. Of course, if a snowman or something jumps out in front of you, use your brakes, but actually compression braking is the way to go when going downhill. And now, if you want to enhance your car on the cheap, go check out these 5 cheap mods that you should do right now. Or check out what YouTube recommends you watch next. Oh, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. But either way, you can't lose, and as always, keep living that ideal lifestyle.